from New York at 8 Eastern later today. In the NBA, after 18 seasons, Rudy Gay is retiring. He was the 8th pick in the 2006 draft out of UConn.
It's time.
You know what time it is?
Time. The game for Tuscaloosa's longest running sports show.
The biggest goal of our team,
especially in the first half,
we at Bama, we're trying to be the best. Always is to win a national championship.
Something cool to look back on.
We don't want to waste a failure.
You're inside the game.
John Mechie on the ground.
Appreciate your interest in the game.
On your home for Alabama sports.
And Alabama wins.
Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. Powered by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Now, here's your award-winning host, Ryan Fowler.
And a big good afternoon to you. Welcome into the game. T-Town Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. You can listen to us a lot of different ways. Certainly 1230 AM, 100.9 FM. You can also listen to us on the app. Tide109.com is also an option. That's a free download. Android, iPhone, Google Play. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to talk about this Alabama football team. We've got 3 guests today for you. We've got Mike Detillier at 2:15. We'll talk with Mike Detillier. Coming up at 3:30, we've added Brad Edwards. Brad's going to join the conversation because it really fits with the theme of the unknown, right? Brad Edwards, a guy that's covered college football, still covers college football. Want to talk about, it's an off week, but I also want to look back a little bit, and we're going to kind of jump into, how would you evaluate this season at this point, right? When you look back and you think about this football team, going into the second bye week, and I love the double bye week. I think the double bye week is really helpful, right? I think it's a helpful to get your team, especially when you look around college football and the depth concerns that you have, or at least I have, and some people share that same opinion as well. It's double bye week, gets you a chance to get healthy as you crunch out the last month of the season. We're going to talk about what Alabama needs to do to kind of rebound from a perspective with the college football playoffs, would winning out. Let's just say that they win out. Where would that put Alabama? Because, you talk about possible wins. Could Alabama beat LSU down there, turn around, have a chance to beat Mercer here? We assume that will happen. Go to Oklahoma, win that football game, and then beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Now, what needs to happen? Who are you pulling for? What chaos do you want out there? Heather Dennage just got an article that's College Football Playoff 2024 Week 10 Bubble Watch. And she's going to join us at 4 o'clock to not discuss only that, but also talk about, as she labels, Notre Dame is the X factor. Notre Dame is the X factor. So we're going to talk about the first round games. We're in a sample size that's just unknown, right? We don't know what a 12-team playoff. We think we know what it looks like. And with parity so much in the game, we're going to dive into that. We'll talk with Mike Detillier. We'll talk about LSU. We'll talk about Alabama. We'll talk about this big game. And then we'll lead into it 3:30 with Brad Edwards. And then at 4 o'clock, Heather Dennage. But I want to go into a couple different things. But how would you grade this football team? What grade would you give this team right now? Okay, there's been some disappointment, right? There has been. So what grade would you give them? What grade would you say, hey, this team has met this? Would it be an A? Would it be a B? Would it be a C? Would it be a D? I don't think it's an F, but you're certainly entitled to your opinion. This team has overcome some things, but then there's some areas that, we probably didn't expect that this was going to be a weakness. So we'll get you involved in the show, and we'll have some fun today. We're always powered by Tuscaloosa Toyota. TuscaloosaToyota.com, 3325 Skyland Boulevard, and online at TuscaloosaToyota.com. Buy 3 tires, get that 4th tire for only $1. That is happening for just a couple of more days. That special will actually end. So if you're in the market for a new set of tires, buy 3, get that 4th tire for only $1. It always saves you a little bit of money. How about the Tundra? 1.99 APR for $36 with a $2,000 loyalty cash. And then the Tacoma, as low as 3.49 with a $1,500 loyalty cash. That's available in the 2-wheel drive, the 4-wheel drive. You can see those models online at TuscaloosaToyota.com. David DeSantis, we've had a great partnership with this program, and we appreciate David for being a longtime sponsor of this show, and they power us each and every day. Mike Detillier, Brad Edwards, Heather Dennage is going to be a part of our show. Well, as you would expect, I put a tweet out yesterday. Let's just say I've got a lot of comments. All I did was state the facts, okay? No more, no less. Yesterday, I made the comment on the air. I said, this guy may be the best guy. He may be the great citizen of the state of Alabama. He may volunteer at the soup kitchen. He may help old ladies out of the Walmart parking lot. He may help, I call it buggies because I'm country, but for you sophisticated folks that call it shopping carts, he may pick up shopping carts at the local Walmart to help people. I'm not questioning any of that. I just said I thought it was a little and my tweet simply says, one interesting tidbit is that Chris Conway, who is an SEC official, also serves as the public address announcer for Auburn basketball. He was the line judge for the Alabama-Missouri game. Not saying he made a mistake. Looking back, he was also part of the officiating crew for Alabama versus Vanderbilt. That tweet currently has about 210,000 views, Roll Tide, and the Auburn folks found me. Hello, Auburn. Good to see you guys. Hope you guys are having a great day. Appreciate you building up my algorithm. Thank you. I appreciate you guys because we've had a lot of comments, and most of those, some of them are from Alabama, but even some Auburn beat reporters. And they tie it back to David Smith, which is a former quarterback at the University of Alabama that also officiates games in the Southeastern Conference. My rebuttal to that is David Smith's not employed by an SEC school. He's not. He's not paid by Alabama. Well, this guy that I'm talking about graduated at Auburn. He also is an official. He's also a public address announcer. To me, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. I used this yesterday as an example, and I said, being in the radio business, that would be like asking me to go and judge my competition, our competition, right? Hey, here's your rating sheet. You fill it out. Well, nobody listens to that crazy station up north. Nobody. Well, that would be, incorrect, but it just puts you in a bad situation. I think it could put you in a bad situation from his side. What if he made a call that allowed Alabama to go and win something pretty solid, right? So you do look at it. You think about it. Anyway, I threw it out there. It's got me a lot of crazy thoughts. But when I was first kind of hinted at, someone told me that it might be a possibility. Then I went and did the research on my own and discovered that he'd also called the Alabama-Vanderbilt game. So he's called two different games. And, Alabama's a team that's also held to a different standard as far as penalties. And that's not just Ryan talking. You can go to CFBstats.com, stat service that I use. Go to opponent penalties. Go to Alabama's penalties. Alabama makes a lot of mistakes. And a lot of those are fair. They're justified. I mean, it's not like they're not making mistakes. They are. But they're also, when you look at the opponent's penalties, it's not just been this way for multiple years. It's been there probably 10, 12, 13 years that Alabama's held to a different standard. Now, it's not a proven thing. It's just my hypothetical. When you look at the opponent's penalties, White, you had something to say. Talk to me.
Is he going to pull double duty, you think? Because, basketball season starts next week. So is he going to be PA announcing on Friday night at a basketball game and then on the other side of the Southeastern Conference for a game on Saturday?
Yeah, and I did find out he's not able to call Auburn games. So if it's a home game, it's not like he can just walk across the street and be an official there. But I like I said, I just find it a little odd. Everybody has a bias. One of the things that they taught us in statistics is if somebody walks up and tells you they're unbiased, don't believe them. Because it's just absolutely, it is a hill that I'm going to die on. It is completely false, right? I'm unbiased. No, you're not. You're biased towards something. It may not be to a certain team, but we pull for Alabama. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of that. But I think people who cover the University of Alabama, let's say that you're a completely unbiased guy. Let's just say that you're from Montreal like Blueberry Steve, and you're coming down and you're working as a media member. Well, don't you want to cover things that engage your audience? Winning engages your audience. So like I said, unbiased, I'm not really into one of those because I think it's a fallacy that, there's probably a few out there, but majority, no. And I'll give you a great example. 15, 20 years ago, probably even longer than that, it was uncommon for an alum to cover the program that he went to. Now, it's almost like the standard. I mean, it is. And I think it's all about networking, right? You got a guy that graduates from a certain university. Maybe that's LSU. Maybe it's Georgia. He builds connections, and he gets a job. He covers the team that he went to school at. Like I said, the unbiased stuff is one of those that just kind of it rubs me, because it's like when somebody claims that they're unbiased, just tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. I tell the audience every day, yeah, sure, I have a vested interest. Not only is this the team that I grew up, I went to school here. I know that this audience is electrified when Alabama has success. And when we have failure, then I have to be a therapist. And today I may be a little bit of both.
Well, it's not unheard of to cover the team that you went to school with, right? Like, you think about, we're Tide 100.9, right? Like, we cover Alabama. Okay, I moved up here, went to grad school, developed a connection, and got a job here. So I'm a graduate student covering the University of Alabama. All of our producers, Jaisha, she developed connections, and now she's covering Alabama while a student at the university. Jackson's the same way. Develop connections, sure. Got it. Because you have to have an internship. You do. Right? You got to graduate.
You build relationships.
Right. You got to have a little bit of experience when you graduate. And so how do you do it? You find local media outlets. You develop those connections. You get an internship or a job or whatever. And then you move on from there. And so you cover the University of Alabama because you interned at a place covering Alabama while you were in school.
And that's the name of this business. People tell me all the time, said, how do you get in this business? Be nice to people, build networks. You be in the right place at the right time certainly helps. Got to do an intern. There's a lady that's doing a report on me that doing a project that she sent out. And she did this about a year ago. I'm not going to say her name, but a very prominent person in this community. And she's doing it for a class project. And one of the things that I always tell when people ask me the question, build networks. And I don't care what it is, don't turn it down. If somebody says go cover the soccer team, you never know who you might meet at that soccer game that might build a connection for the future. So anyway, that's my little piece of advice. We'll get back to Alabama. We'll ask you to grade this Alabama football team as we're now in this bye week. We can also look back. We had a good conversation yesterday with the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good was sponsored by DanielMooreArt.com. And we'll continue right here on The Game. Mike Detillier coming up in just a couple of minutes. WWL, the Big 870. He paints the photo of Alabama and LSU. We'll preview that game. Then Brad Edwards will talk college football playoffs. Heather Dinich will talk college football playoffs. 3:30 for Brad, 4 o'clock for Heather Dinich. And we'll kind of get a rundown because I still think that X factor, as she labeled it there, it's Notre Dame. We're watching Notre Dame. Notre Dame could be a wrinkle here. There's some other teams that can do it. We got into this in the last hour yesterday of the show. We'll do it right here on The Game. We'll take your phone calls at 205-3.
We wanted everything.
Alabama gets a big win over the Memphis Tigers. That was pretty awesome, right? A lot of energy around Alabama Crimson Tide basketball. It will officially start next Monday, 8 p.m. UNC Asheville. We're counting it down, provided by Alabama Credit Union, down to 6 days away. Alabama going to be starting as one of the top basketball teams out there, and the way they played looks good. Looks like it's going to be a great, fun season here in Tuscaloosa. Let's go to Mike Detillier, WWL, the Big 870. Hey, Mike, I hope all is well. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
I'm here.
Yeah, how are you, Mike? You having a good day?
I'm good. Yeah, it's a typical Tuesday.
Okay.
TV, radio.
Okay. So a lot of responsibility, and I appreciate you coming on our show. I want to go back to Texas A&M and LSU. Just give me your takeaway. Most of us watched the game. I want to hear your analysis.
Best way to put it is LSU got their ass beat. I mean, up front. Physically, offensive line, I mean, they can pass block, but you ran the ball 24 times for 25 yards. Ryan, I got a 5-year-old granddaughter that can tell you what the percentage per rush is off of that. The inability to run the football is evident. They're putting everything on Nussmeier to throw the ball, and he's making mistakes. It was a bad game for him. He forced some throws, and these defensively, man, if you'd have played Connor Wegman for 4 quarters, you had the game won. All of a sudden, they inserted Reed in there, and it was a whole different ballgame. Like they had never played that read option, before in their life. And, the 5 possessions A&M had, they scored 4 touchdowns and a field goal. So really disappointing effort because, man, midway into the second quarter, my feeling is, geez, how much longer can A&M go with Weigman at quarterback? And then, man, again, they made the quarterback change. Everything changed there. So offensively, not being able to run the football, and second part, not being able to stop the run with the quarterback. And, A&M's got a really good back. And Le'Veon Moss, him and I go back a few years. I saw him in the 10th grade, at Struma High School in Baton Rouge. He was a star runner out of Struma. Always wanted to go to LSU. They had their eyes on others. He initially committed to Alabama. He wanted to play for Coach Saban. That was his deal. I want to play for Alabama. I want to play for Coach Saban. I want to be part of national championships. Then he takes a visit to Texas A&M. And all of a sudden he's decommitted. He's going to A&M. So, hey, listen, it's good to get paid, right? And I got nothing against that. I'm a capitalist. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But that was something special in that game for him because LSU was his school of choice. That's really where he wanted to go. They didn't get into the game with him until real late. And by that time, he was headed to A&M.
Mike, let's preview this Alabama game. Alabama-LSU, a lot of people have labeled this as a playoff elimination game. Obviously, there's some work to do, but would you agree with that?
I agree. It's absolutely correct. If LSU's better on defense than they were a year ago, but I'll be honest with you, if I watch that film, I know what I'm going to do with Jalen Milroe. They didn't. They were two-hand touch with Reed, and last year they were two-hand touch, and sometimes it wasn't even two-hand touch with Milroe, the way he ran the football against them. So, yeah, it's an elimination type series. I just think LSU's inability to stop the run at times shows up, and Alabama I think is vulnerable in the back half. Secondary-wise. So, with breaks here. And so, I think it'll be a great game. You're under the lights in Tiger Stadium. And so that'll be an interesting game for both teams because you know what's on the line here. A third loss, you eliminated. Basically eliminated.
Sure. And think about we're all learning about this 12-team playoff. Think about where we were at back in the summer where we thought that there might be a 9-3 team slip in. Doesn't seem like that's the case.
Archie has long told me that. And last week he told me the same thing. Mike, I'm just telling you, the way this season plays out, don't be shocked. I'm like, okay. I'll remember you told me that, Archie. But Archie has said that from the start of summer all the way through. Like he said, I'm telling you, I could see a scenario where that could happen. A 9-3 SEC team get in. Strength of schedule, who they beat. And his deal was there will be no team that goes undefeated in the SEC. He said, I think most of these teams, when you look at their record, they will have a 2 on the back end. And he said, I think it'll be more than a few that occurs. He was adamant that will happen. We'll see. We'll see if that actually happens. And we had him on last week, Brian. He told me the exact same thing, that he could see a 9-3 SEC team get in.
All right, Mike, and maybe we could talk it out a little bit, but is it fair to say 4 teams from the SEC? Do you think there'll be more?
Man, And I know there'll be 3. I don't know about that 4.
See, me too. I mean, that's why I'm looking at, because I've tried to tell Alabama fans, I think you can go 10-2 and still not make the college football playoffs. I mean, so I'm saying it's an elimination game. You lose it, you're out. But if you win it, you still got some work to do, and may need some help from other teams.
Yeah, exactly. And how this season plays out late, I think that is going to be the big part. How does this play out late in the year with, big games, and then what happens in the SEC championship game? Brian, there's a lot of different things here that could play out. And so I get exactly where Archie's coming from here. And, with teams with 2 losses, again, what happens if Alabama loses to LSU? Does it really knock them out completely? I would think so, but you never know how this season's going to play out. You never really know of how it's going to play out in the SEC, really. And so I get it exactly what Manning was talking about. Fully, I get it.
Mike, I want to go back to Brian Kelly. What are the fans down there saying about Brian Kelly?
They ain't happy.
Okay. Well,
they're not happy.
But
they're not happy with Kalen. They're not happy. It is what it is at this stage of the game.
But I don't think it's Brian Kelly. I know frustration with losing with Vanderbilt and Tennessee. I think this is, and you and I talked about this about 3 weeks ago. Fans are going to have to recalibrate what is the college football now. You're going to lose games. You said it. There are no undefeated teams in the SEC. Not going to be. That ship has sailed. This is the new college football. My fan base here, listeners here, they get tired of me saying it because they've had this expectation. They're going to go in and beat everybody 55-0. That's just not going to happen. And you know who told us that?
Nope.
Nick Saban on January the 10th or whatever day it was. When he told us that indirectly. Said, college football's changed and I don't like losing. I'm out of here. See you later.
And this goes back in the summer, and we had long conversations about certain things, and Archie was one of them, and even Peyton kind of chimed in. Guys, I think there will be maybe one team in the SEC with 1 loss, maybe, but Peyton was sort of convinced that maybe there would be 2. That everybody's going to have 2 losses. And he said Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, they're all going to have 2 losses. I was surprised he said that. So you could see where all this is going now. Everybody's got at least 1, okay? Everybody's got at least 1 at this stage. How much? It wouldn't take much to get the second one. Wouldn't take much, and LSU's already got 2. Ole Miss has already got 2. And those were 2 teams that a lot of people felt had a shot to get to the SEC championship game.
Well, and Mike, when we go to 16. Now, listen, I'm not a college football expansion guy, but I do think about 4 teams. If we stayed at 4, how chaotic that would be. I mean, it'd be off the charts. Now we're going to 16, and I'm going, okay, maybe 16's not a bad plan. Now, I don't know how you're going to survive as far as injuries and depth and all that. I think that needs to be looked at. But 16 teams and the current college football with so much parity, maybe it's a fair point.
I do believe that, Ryan. I'm convinced of that. I really, really am. I'm convinced of that. That I really think you are going to see that. And the parity, Bobby tells me all this time, how would fans react if a 10-2 team wins the national championship? They're 10-2 in the regular season, and you get hot, and you start winning, because we've seen that before. We've seen it before with teams you don't want to see late in the year. They had an LSU team a few years back when Jamarcus Russell was playing. That team late in the season, had there been a playoff type deal like today, I wouldn't have wanted to play them. I wouldn't have wanted to play them. They were really good, and they ended up beating the crap out of Illinois in the Sugar Bowl that year. But that was a team that, had things went right, during the regular season, that, they could have played for a national championship. And they were really good. They were super talented that year. Maybe one of the more talented teams Les Miles ever had was that one. And they had 2 SEC losses. So, Ryan, we entering that era, and I think for a lot of people who gritted their teeth and they didn't want to see any of this happen, there is a certain reality, isn't it? That hasn't it made college football more exciting today than ever before?
Oh, the TV ratings are off the charts, Mike. I mean, it is.
It's unbelievable. And yet, man, we had them. Well, it ain't my grandpa and daddy's world. I don't want to watch it. Okay. Well, somebody's watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. You know damn well they watching it. They saying they not, but I know they watching it. Funny about, I'm not watching it because it's not what I grew up watching. Well, man, that's a lot of things happen in life that weren't happening when I grew up, and it's changed. And you better learn how to adapt. Either that or you behind. The world's not going to wait for you to get on. It's going to change. And I think it has made it a sport that is such interesting to watch today. To me, when you look at it across the board, it really, really has made it so interesting to watch how it's almost going to be like college basketball and like college baseball. Who is going to get hot late? Who can take care of all this late? Man, to me, that's going to be the thing, and it's going to be just like college baseball, college basketball, a little bit of luck involved. Who gets caught late? Who gets it late?
Yeah. Now, Mike, I will admit, I'm an old fart when it comes to this NIL stuff. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be paid. But, I don't have a vested interest in LSU. I talk to you every week, but I'm certainly an SEC guy. But it says Michigan has offered a competitive NIL package on par with what LSU has presented to the number 1 quarterback recruit, Bryce Underwood. When I read this, I'm going, man, $5 million is what, quote, is expected to land, whether it's LSU or Michigan. I'm still bothered by that headline, and I probably shouldn't be, and that's the part I've got to recalibrate and admit that this is the new college football.
It's the new college football. And, listen, if that's accurate or not, I don't know. I have watched Michigan play, and I can understand why they upped the ante. Man, quarterback play, it ain't too good. Ryan, I think that's the adjustment we all have to make. And I think for a lot of people, they don't like, an 18, 19, 20-year-old young man getting paid to play sports. I get the angst a little bit, but, man, you don't think they were not getting paid before? You kind of got your head in the sand if you don't think that was happening before. It just now is sort of, how do you say that, sort of legal with everything. So I get it. I get it perfectly. But I do think it has made this a very interesting world to cover. From a standpoint of covering sports, I mean, it is really something to see how all this has started to break down in front of our very eyes.
Well, and when you lose, or you just point to the NIL pot and pass the plate again. If you don't get enough, pass it again. I mean, that's where fans, I mean, they're going to have to dump in NIL. I mean, if they want to have a competitive team, wherever the money's coming from, the money's got to be, it's the market value. As you said to start the show, I'm a capitalist. Well, that's what it takes. I mean, it's the market demand. And I thought it might recalibrate, or, that it would adjust, and really it's went the other way. It's going up and up. Desperation.
I think it's dramatically went the other way. Not a little bit.
No.
Dramatically went the other way. That will be no recalibration with this. There will be none. There will be no recalibration. It is what it is at this stage. To be honest, it's not going to change. And I don't know what it's got to happen for a change. Now, I hope they don't get the federal government involved. They can't solve their own damn problem.
Amen. Come on.
You want to get them involved? I mean, we see the cluster that we in every day with things changing. You can't have them enforce anything. It's got to be a body of work, and it can't be the NCAA take care of this. They have messed up everything at every step of the way and lost millions and millions of dollars in courtroom fights that they knew they couldn't win, but they got in the ring and they got knocked out cold every time. They're a bookie that you continually have to pay, win or lose. They do nothing for the sport. Anytime you got to take an advertisement to tell me how good you are, then I know that, Ryan, that's something wrong. You shouldn't have to be buying advertising to tell me what you've done. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to be doing that. But yet we see it today.
Mike Detillier, we'll talk more LSU, Alabama. Have an awesome show this afternoon. Always appreciate you for being a part of our show. And, it's good that we get 2 weeks to talk about this big rivalry down in Baton Rouge. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun and, a lot of hype to it. And it's the start of the playoff system. If we haven't seen it already, we're seeing it now. It's start of the playoff system.
It is. No, it is. It is. Hey, Mike, I appreciate you. Have an awesome show this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it, bud.
Appreciate you. Mike Detillier, WWL, the big 870. All right, so here we go. We're going to open up phone lines, 205-342-9904. If you want to jump in, we've got 2 lines available. Get in early. We always get backed up at the end of the show, and you may not be able to get in, but we want you to share your opinions. Let's look at the grading system, okay? Now, I had some hard professors. You'd hand them the same paper, C minus. Ooh, man, maybe a B. Hand it to a different professor that might not even read it. Oh, you got an A. So I'll be curious how we grade this out. But 8 games in, Alabama's 6-2. Alabama's 6-2. 4 games left going into the month of November, coming into this bye week. How would you grade this team out? What grade would you give them? I don't think an A is fair. Is B a fair? Or you think this is more of a C team? Would you go lower than that? We'll take your calls. 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904. We'll dive into some of those metrics. Heather Dinich coming up at 4 o'clock.
You don't need a dance floor. Oh, my. Good Lord. Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey.
A lot of energy around this program. I'm curious, when you look back at the Missouri game, how did that change your confidence? How did that change your confidence going into this final month of the season? Alabama got that shutout, the defense, and you get another week to get healthy, right? You get a week, and injuries are something that you're navigating, especially at some crucial points of this football team. And it's not just injuries. Yeah, you've got some significant injuries, right? But then you also have just bumps and bruises. Just getting this extra bye week to get ready to go to LSU, as Mike Detillier and I were talking a couple of minutes ago, with the process of a playoff elimination game. We will ask Brad Edwards, and we'll ask Heather Dinich coming up a little bit later. We'll talk about that right here on The Game. Let's go to Wayne in Northport. Wayne, you're first up. I hope all is well. Welcome into The Game in Tuscaloosa.
Doing well, Ryan. Good to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling in.
You asked the question about how would you grade this team.
How would you?
I would give them a B-.
A B-, okay. All right, so why
have, or with a couple of units that we've had problems with, and this is just my opinion.
Well, that's what we're looking for. We want your opinion.
I think Jalen has played well, except for one ball game. I feel like he had a bad game in the Tennessee game. We're all going to have bad days. So I don't want to barbecue him for that. But I feel like a consistent problem we've had all year long is offensive line with pre-snap penalties, and our defensive secondary has not been where I would like it to be, especially with a guy like Malachi Moore back there. I feel like, I don't know if it's because of injury or what, but I just don't think we've been cohesive on the back end of the defense.
I think a lot of that's injuries. I think you're also starting multiple freshmen, true freshmen back there. And if you can go through these growing pains, like Bray Hubbard, Pro Football Focus listed him, let this sink in, the top graded safety in the SEC last week.
Wow.
7 tackles, the 1 interceptions. Yes, there's going to be some growing pains. And I promise you, if Bray Hubbard, he's not going to play like that every single week, right? But I think from a standpoint of look at where these guys are going to be when they're sophomores, juniors. You got to experience some growing pains, and hopefully you can keep all these guys around. But there is a reason to be excited about some of these young players on the defensive side of the football.
Oh, yeah, some of the future. But I feel like we're young back there. Except for Malachi, we really don't have a lot of experience back there. Is that fair?
No, it's 100%. I mean, and even though it's not just experience, you're dealing with a new system. You're implementing a new system. You're installing something completely different than what Coach Saban ran here. Yeah, you go back to some of the formations, but even the terminology is different. And I think a lot of the injuries have caused you to have to run some simplified on the front. Now, I say simplified defense. Your front's pretty experienced, right? Your defensive line, your linebackers, pretty solid. But that third level, you're probably having to simplify some things.
Exactly. Third level, you don't have a lot of experience. So, and what I wanted to touch on with the pre-snap penalties, I don't have a problem with stuff like holding and things like that because sometimes that can happen because of effort. But I feel like particularly on the offensive line, we have had a ton of pre-snap penalties, especially when we went on the road to Tennessee. Tennessee was the first hostile crowd we had dealt with all year long, and we jumped offside at least 5 or 6 times that I counted.
But a problem. It's been a problem. I mean, they've had, when we criticize officials, we're also admitting that there's been a lot of mistakes. There has been. Alabama is justified on many of these mistakes. But I also think when you look at it, we are also held to a different standard, as we should be.
We should be.
I mean, you don't win those.
Championship program, right?
Sure.
Speaking of that, I want to commend the basketball team for what appears to have been a successful preseason with 2 exhibition wins over Wake Forest and Memphis, and I assume we came out of both those games without any injuries. I haven't heard anything.
Had some injuries going in, but some of these may be precautionary, but a lot of excitement. Wayne, you've lived here for a long time. Can you remember this much excitement around Alabama Crimson Tide basketball?
No. This is on fire as I've heard this community ever. The fact that we've already sold out the season tickets tells you all you need to know. And I don't have any, by the way, so I'll be watching at home.
You'll be able to get some. You'll be able to get some, Wayne. I mean, I don't know.
they pretty much got the situation though out at the Coliseum, building the new practice facility. You have to take a shuttle, and that's kind of complicated for me. I tried it one time, and it didn't work out so well. So I'll be watching at home, but I'll be pulling these guys on.
Well, I mean, okay, Wayne.
Have a special year.
Wayne is because I know that you're not able to move around. Is there any way that someone could drop you off the front of Coleman Coliseum? Is that an option?
No, not really.
Okay, I didn't know.
Not really. I mean, that's not the problem, getting somebody to go. It's just when I went with my family the last time, they had cut off parking at the Coliseum lot, and I went to the Kentucky game, and I had some problems, and I had to leave early, but it was nothing nobody did wrong. It just, I had some issues and had to leave early. So
sure. Okay.
It was, it's just, the way the parking is out there right now, it's just not convenient for me. And I've had season tickets before, and it was a fun experience, but I'll be watching on TV. You can bet I'll watch every game I can. The Purdue game's going to be on Peacock, which really ticks me off.
Hey, the streaming was supposed to cut our budget. The cord cutting, right, was supposed to cut our budget. If anything, it's increased it because you got to have like 9 different streaming services to get you. I mean, you got to go Amazon Prime, you got to go Peacock, you got to go ESPN Plus. I mean, there is a ton of ways to, describe, what it takes to view these things. So, Hey, but anyway, the good thing is UNC Asheville next Monday, it'll be ESPNU and then the SEC Network Plus. And then, so you got a bunch of games on SEC Network, but you pointed out the November the 15th game in West Lafayette, Indiana is on Peacock. Wayne, I appreciate you. B-. So, appreciate you.
Is that fair?
No, I think it's very fair. I'm looking at Twitter. I put this poll up on Twitter. Man, tell you what, there's some tough professors out there.
Yeah. I understand it.
Yeah. And I get it. But, like they're on a C. Right now we have 72 votes in 3 minutes. C is leading by 70%. 0%.
Well, I said B-, which is close to a C.
Well, but it just sounds better, Wayne.
Yeah, it does.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Wayne in Northport. We'll take your phone calls. How would you grade out this football team? 8 games in. How would you grade Alabama's performance? A, B, C, D. 5.6% say D. And you guys are tough. 70% are C, and it changes. Actually just went to 125 votes, so we're moving a little bit. C's coming down to 68%. It was 70. Now it's 28% on the B. Well, curious where that will go, and I'm going to keep track. And I'm giving away a Daniel Moore calendar for 2025, just like we did yesterday, and we will ship that to you. So don't feel like that you got to win it locally. We'll get that out to you as well. 205-342-9904. Brad Edwards going to talk us some Alabama Crimson Tide football. We'll also talk some general college football in about 45 minutes. We'll take calls until then, right here as we continue Tide 100. All right, it's Fronhard Construction, ASME certification, I-beam installation, fabrication. If you're building for the ground up, let's build something together. BHardenConst.com. The industrial contractors serving our community, our state, and our neighboring states as well. Check it out, Brian Harden Construction. We have a crane, and we will travel. And a lot of cranes to fit your needs. If it's a small job or a larger job, I mean, they could literally pick up Lee County and move them over to Georgia if we wanted to do that. We want to keep them in the state because it's fun that way, right? Not really, but we say that to be nice. Marty, Arkansas. Marty, good afternoon. You're in the game.
I'm doing fine, Ron. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm great. Hope you're having a good day as well.
I'm doing a real good day. Digger you need to get Digger off the show. I wish you would have asked Mike Detillier about that Catholic thing, because you look at their second game of the year, it was against a nobody, and they play at night. And that happened 30 years ago. Digger wasn't even around. I've gone and seen John Curtis play. I go around to a lot of high school games. I keep up with Alabama's, keep up with Tennessee's, I keep up with Arkansas, and I keep up with Louisiana. John Curtis and Brother Martin's and other schools. So Digger can call me all the crazy he wants. Now, I said Alabama, if everything went right and we talked about injuries in the secondary, that we could go 11-0. Injuries had bugged this team. from the get-go. And then I said my worst, we had the best and the worst case scenario. And I said my worst case scenario would be 8-4, and I got laughed at. We got lucky on Hollywood doing that Houdini move, and we beat Georgia, and South Carolina couldn't convert on a 2-point play. So there's two we buckled out of that we could have lost and had a 4 loss. But I'll give this team a B+ for how far they come from the first of the year. The coaching staff, I'll give a A- to how they've come up, especially on the defense. And the guy that's calling the plays, it's his first year. He's never called plays, and he's learning too. And he's got a lot of new players and that in there. But he did a really good job that second half of running plays on that. And everyone says, "Oh, that 4-2-5 won't work." Well, it worked against Missouri, and we shut him out. And he stuck the number one defense in there on a goal line stand, and they stood up and showed what they could do. And that's Alabama football right there.
That was. No. I mean, 271 yards on the ground, whether it's the Justice Haynes thunderous run, as Kalen DeBoer described it, or the shutout. No, and it's not just about Missouri being a weaker football team, okay? They were still a top 25, and I tell you what, Marty, they're still a top 25 today. So there's somebody valuing them.
They're a good football team. Hey, they're a good football team. You got to go play. And we went and played. But that, like I said, the offensive coordinator learned how to do some things. And he took what he gave him, and he ran the football and faced. But you're right about that, because I watched you can watch it on there again, Ryan. When Williams comes off the field, DeBoer catches him one time and says, "You should have turned." If you read his lips, he says, "You should have turned the other way, and you would have caught the football." So, and he even said sometimes he don't. If he would have went 2 yards deeper, the ball would have been right there instead of up so high. Some of these wide receivers don't run the right route or run it deep enough, and Melrose thinks they're going one way or 3 or 4 yards deeper, and he throws it, and that's of the learning curve. I think we're getting better at it. We got a week off. Get healthy in the secondary, and get a running game going. And I think we can go to Red Stick and beat them. And like I said, the last 4 after that, I think we can maneuver the playing field and win the games. But, we just can't have any more injuries in the secondary.
Now, we've had our share of bumps and bruises, and it was a thin position going into the season. And it's even got thinner because of some of the injuries. But, hey, Marty, one more time. You said a B is where you're going to go?
I'll go B+.
B+, so that'll be the highest grade that we've had so far. B+, and he justified why he gave him a B+. Hey, Marty, I appreciate you, man. I hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Too. Another guy, we can't have, I don't know his name, but that Ty, I call him Ty, the wrong name, and he gave me. But that wide receiver, because we need him in the LSU game, and they need him healthy. Because when Melrose comes around,
Kendrick Law, yeah, he's your guy. Yeah, I got
Kendrick Law, he knows how to hit that DB and open up, or hit that end. And Ty Law knows how to block, and he opens up the other wide receivers too.
Speed's pretty awesome. And he's a physical guy. Looks like he could play linebacker if they needed him too. He's a guy that obviously
he makes that running game. He makes that running game go when you run into the outside. He knocks that guy 3 yards backwards, and you got a crack right there. All right, Ryan, I know you got a guest, and I'll listen to the rest of the show. You have a good day.
Thank you, Marty. We appreciate that. B+. We're going to Brad Edwards. Heather Dennage in 40 minutes right here in Tuscaloosa. Brad Edwards next. T-Town Tide 100.9, 1230. Hey, Brad Edwards is a part of Gospel in the Gridiron. It's a podcast that you can download where you get your podcast. They're talking about LSU, Texas A&M, Texas Vanderbilt, the world of college football, Indiana with a perfect season so far. We're going to talk about a lot of that chaos as we welcome in Brad Edwards. You can connect with him, J. Brad Edwards on the Twitter account, J. Brad Edwards on the Twitter account. Brad Edwards, I hope all is well. Welcome back to T-Town.
Thank you, Ryan. Good to be back. Yeah, all is well here. Settling into fall and ready for, I guess we're a week from today, I believe, is the first committee rankings. And they picked a great time to do it, didn't they? Election night.
Wow! Yeah, I never really. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Ooh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know how big of an audience they'll have, but it doesn't really matter. We'll get the first rankings, and I think they will be revealing as far as we're looking at the polls all these weeks, and that in the past, in the 4-team playoff era, the selection committee's rankings often did not resemble the polls. At least with certain teams, it didn't. And so I think it'll be fascinating to see in which areas they differ, with which teams they differ, because it's going to be really important. Because I think what you're going to end up with at the end is you're going to have a number of 10-2 teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, and then you're going to have some 11-1 teams in the ACC and the Big 12, and it's up to the committee to decide, okay, who's the better team. And, we'll see. Depending on how many upsets there are toward the end of the season, it might end up working itself out. But at least in the first few weeks after these initial rankings, first few weeks of November, there are going to be a lot of people arguing about a lot of things, and it'll be, just a good old times as far as college football goes.
It creates a lot of conversation, and the audience is going to kill me when I say this because I've been in kind of an anti-playoff expansion. 12 teams, I'm glad we're here because I'd hate to say that we were still at 4.
Yeah, I mean, look, in a year like this, I think it has the potential to be really exciting because, as we've seen, there's not a dominant team out there. And I know, like, if you watch Georgia against Texas, you're like, well, that's a dominant team. Well, you'd say the same thing if you watched Alabama in the first half against Georgia. I mean, you've seen, like, those two teams, what they're capable of being when they bring their A game. But they don't bring their A game every week. We know that for sure with Alabama. But even Georgia, like, you look at the two games that they played. Well, look at the game they played before Alabama when they almost lost to Kentucky. You look at the two games they played between Alabama and Texas when they just kind of sleptwalked through 4 quarters against Auburn and Mississippi State. You start asking yourself, like, who has shown on the field that they've got a really good chance to win 3 straight games against top 10 caliber teams? Because that's what you're going to have to do to win this thing. And I'm not sure I've seen that from anybody this year. And I think that's what will make a 12-team playoff more exciting than the 4-team model would have been. Now, the drawback, if you watched the Ohio State-Oregon game a couple weeks ago, or watched even the Georgia-Texas game, you do have some moments where you're watching a really good game, but you can just feel like there's not this tension that there was last year and through every previous year of college football history, because sometimes, especially when you get in the second half of the season, these games, that whoever loses, they're not out of it. Like, this isn't a do or die game for anybody. And so I think we've already seen some examples of how the expanded playoff does detract a little bit from the excitement of the regular season. But I think, and we could be wrong, but I think it's going to make up for it once we get into December and January.
Brad, you said it. You were the first person who said it. It was about 3 weeks ago on the show. You said that you didn't think a 9-3 team was possible. I don't think it is either. I mean, now since we've had a couple of weeks to look at it and kind of analyze it, I just don't see a scenario where a 9-3 team gets in.
Yeah, unless there's total chaos.
Unless there's total chaos, yeah.
Yeah, because looking at it now, here's another thing is that, and this is kind of related to that, is that when George Schroeder and I on the podcast were talking like back at the beginning of the season, we were thinking about how exciting this is going to be when the first committee rankings come out, and instead of just like looking at the top 15 or so, you could really look at the whole top 25 and say, hey, all of these teams are still legitimately in it with 4 or 5 weeks left. But we're almost there now, and I'm looking at least this week's AP top 25, and I already see top 25 teams that I think are out of the 12-team playoff hunt. So I don't know that there are as many teams that are in the mix as we might have thought. And part of that, like I said, is just because you've got a lot of teams that are hanging out there with no losses, or maybe they even have one loss, but the remaining schedule is really easy. And part of this is just like, I do think this is going to change from year to year. But this year, you see a lot of examples of teams that are, relatively talented, maybe not great, but at least good, that drew a really favorable schedule. And I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but if you look at the ACC, I mean, you have 4 teams right now that are undefeated in conference play. 2 of them are undefeated overall as well. The other 2 have 1 loss overall. But the only one that plays the others is Pitt. And you look at Miami and Clemson and SMU, none of them play the others in that group. And so in theory, let's just say that they all beat Pitt. Actually, one of them doesn't play Pitt. I think it's Miami. I think Miami doesn't play them. But if they all beat Pitt, then you could conceivably end up with 3 teams that are 8-0 in ACC play at the end of the year. And one will be undefeated overall. That would be Miami. The other 2, Clemson and SMU, would be, have 1 loss overall. Obviously, someone in that group's not getting into the ACC championship game. You can't put 3 teams in there. Someone runs the table in the conference and doesn't get in. So what's the tiebreaker? I don't know. But the bigger question to everyone else in the country is the selection committee just going to put all 3 of them into the playoff? And if you look at, like in the case of SMU, for example, the only ranked team that they will have played up until this weekend against Pitt is BYU, the only team that's currently ranked. And they lost to BYU. And you look at the schedule and who they'd have those 11 wins over, and it's like, well, I mean, assuming that Pitt takes a few losses here down the stretch, I'm not sure that they'll have a single win over the committee's final top 25. Will they put them in over a 10-2 team from the SEC just because they have 1 fewer loss? We have no idea. But I do know, when you went back in the 4-team era with the selection committee, the number that seemed to always be the most important to them was the loss column. It was a number of losses. And I mean, don't say that to Florida State, because I know they'll disagree based on the 0 they had last year. But that was obviously an extenuating circumstance with the quarterback being out. But yeah, so unless the committee changes its approach to the number of losses and starts looking or putting a lot more weight on schedule strength, then I think there could be fewer spots in the at-large pool for the SEC and the Big Ten than we might have thought that there would be.
What do you think is that number for the SEC? Like, I mean, not saying that everything goes chalk, but just kind of looking ahead. 4, 3?
Well, yeah, so I think 3 is the minimum. I think the Big Ten and the SEC would each get 3. So you get your champion and you get 2 at-larges. So let's look at it this way. There's 7 at-large spots available. And if the second and third teams from the SEC and the second and third teams from the Big Ten get in, all right, that's 4 of the 7 at-larges right there. And as I just mentioned, you could potentially have 2 11-1 teams in the ACC, in addition to Notre Dame going 11-1. You also have in the Big 12, you have BYU that's undefeated right now, and then you've got Kansas State that's hanging back there. Actually, BYU and Iowa State are both undefeated, and they don't play each other. By the way, that's another group of teams that don't play in conference. So, I mean, you could certainly see a scenario playing out where, if, like you said, if chalk holds, then what's the committee going to do? I mean, are you going to leave out an undefeated team? Well, another one I'll throw into the mix is Indiana, which I'm not even thinking of Indiana right now. Like when I say, two extra teams in the Big Ten, I'm thinking about Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. But Indiana's currently undefeated, and if you look, like the only game that they're going to be an underdog the rest of the way is at Ohio State. So what if they finish 11-1? It would be similar to SMU, in that I'm not sure they would have really beaten anybody. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be compelling. Because the committee is going to have to make some difficult decisions if there aren't a lot of upsets down the stretch.
All right, for Alabama's resume, to try to get them in, let's say they went out. They beat LSU on the road. They beat Oklahoma on the road, Mercer here, Auburn here in Tuscaloosa. how comfortable would you feel at 10-2?
So with Alabama, I would say that if you had been laying out, these are all the things for Alabama's best case scenario. Two of them did not happen last Saturday. Now, one of them was a little bit of a stretch, which was for Wisconsin to beat Penn State. And Wisconsin did have the lead in the second half. And if Wisconsin had won that game, there's a very good chance they would have ended up being a top 25 team, at which point Alabama would have gotten credit for a non-conference win that, up until a few weeks ago, I don't think anyone was thinking they were going to get credit for. But so we'll just pretend the Wisconsin win is not going to be worth much at this stage. The other one was LSU. LSU playing A&M, A&M being a team that's not on Alabama's schedule. The best case scenario for Alabama would have been for LSU to win that game. And that way, if Alabama wins out, they would not only have the win over Georgia, but they would also have a really good win over LSU. Beating LSU will still be a good win, but, will LSU be a top 15 team at the end if Alabama beats them, or will they only be like a top 25 team? That remains to be seen. But right now, I would say that the best case scenario for Bama, aside from winning its own games, and if they don't do that, none of this other stuff matters. The best case scenario is for Georgia to win the SEC. Because if you've got a number of 10-2 teams that are being put head to head, and then you also have these 11-1 teams that I mentioned, those other leagues that are in the mix, having a win over the over the SEC champion, that would probably be the best win that anyone would have in college football, at the end of the regular season. I think if that wouldn't get you in, then maybe 10-2 doesn't get you in. But considering that Alabama's not going to have a lot of other wins outside of Georgia that are going to be incredibly impressive, I think the best case scenario for Bama is for Georgia to win the SEC.
Okay, so Georgia wins the SEC, certainly a resume booster. But let's say that Georgia happens to lose, and let's say they're sitting there with a 10-2 record, which I guess the SEC championship would counterbalance that. I mean, these head-to-heads have got to matter. It's like Tennessee. If Tennessee and Alabama are sitting there with two wins or two losses, they got to choose Tennessee.
No, you're right. Head-to-head has to matter. Let's say Georgia loses at Ole Miss, and they finish 10-2, and Alabama finishes 10-2. Well, Alabama's head-to-head on Georgia at that point. I don't know. I mean, for the committee, I think that would be a difficult choice to take Georgia over Alabama. Because look, for whatever you may think of Georgia at the moment, if they go lose to Ole Miss, that feeling changes, and they do have Tennessee coming to Athens, but Tennessee has, we all know, I mean, just like Alabama, Tennessee has not been dominant in conference play. And so it's one of those where, on your home field, you should beat Tennessee if you're a playoff caliber team. So, I mean, some of these games could end up changing a lot. Like you said, even though, you want Georgia to win. Well, if they lose to Ole Miss, that could actually put Alabama ahead of Georgia in the pecking order. Who knows what happens from there. But I do think on the Alabama side, if you're looking at Tennessee, for example, if Tennessee only loses to Georgia the rest of the way, and Tennessee's at 10-2, but the same argument, you would put Tennessee ahead of Alabama. Tennessee's got to get in before Alabama does. So, and if you've got Georgia out there and you've got Texas out there that are playing each other in the SEC championship game, that puts Alabama as the fourth SEC team. So, you can see where it starts to get tricky. Sure. It starts to get tight, and that's why I think that barring some sort of upset that would give Alabama a chance to kind of get itself into the SEC championship mix, I think their best case scenario is for Georgia to win it.
Brad, what is your evaluation over this Alabama shutout against the Missouri Tigers? Certainly a team that lost their quarterback. Alabama was able to knock him out with his injury coming into the game. But your thoughts? I mean, how much stock do you put in this win?
Not much. I mean, I wish I had a different answer for that. But I thought the first half was kind of frustrating to watch. The offense just, still didn't click. I saw some better things out of the offense in the second half. I would just love to see them put together 3 good drives in a row. Now look, I know you're not going to go out there every game and look like look like they did in the first quarter against Georgia. That's not realistic. But I would it seems like every time they have a touchdown drive, they kind of follow it up with a 3 and out. and so you're looking for something to lead you to believe that they're making progress here. And maybe they are. Maybe they're making baby steps. But fans don't want to see baby steps. They want to see huge strides. And I'm not really seeing that from the offense. I think defensively, it's just tough to read too much into it just because of Missouri's limitations due to the injuries. So getting the shutout was great. It was nice for them to have a win. They didn't have to sweat in the fourth quarter. But does that tell me anything that's going to make me feel better about the LSU game? And the thing is, like, even watching what happened to LSU in the second half against Texas A&M didn't make me feel better about Alabama's matchup with LSU. I know some people will look at that and they'll say, hey, you know what? Milroe ran all over LSU last year. A&M's backup quarterback came in and he ran all over LSU in the last game. So therefore, LSU is going to have a hard time stopping Milroe. I don't know that I go that far. I mean, I think that because of those things, LSU is going to spend a whole lot of time, prepping for this game, making sure that Milroe does not beat them with his legs. And I think that that's kind of the strategy that most of Alabama's opponents recently have taken. And I would say for the most part, they've done a pretty good job of stopping him from doing that. And so as we go into this, and I know we still got another week and a half until the game, but I'm thinking Alabama needs to establish the running backs, because I think that is what is going to put LSU on its heels defensively and is going to allow Alabama to have success, is to establish those guys. Because if you can't line up and run the ball with those guys, then I don't think that Milroe is going to be the answer, because I think they're already going to be scheming to stop him. So yeah, I mean, unless he's going to go out there and throw for 300 and something yards, which he could, yeah, to me, I think you need to see those running backs having more attempts and more success next week in order for Alabama to be able to put together a good offensive performance.
Gridiron in the Gospel. You can find it where you get your podcast. You can also connect with him, J. Brad Edwards, on the Twitter account, J. Brad Edwards. Hey, Brad, I always enjoy the chats, man. This is fun. This is educational because, we're all in need of this 12-team playoff.
Oh, hey. Yeah, I mean, we're all, the selection committee's new to it, so it's going to be fun to talk about over the next few weeks. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brad. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Brad Edwards helping us out there. We'll continue with more right here on The Game. T-Town, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing. Call Paul at 205-331-6823. Custom curbing for your home or business. Do away with those plastic individual stone borders. Go for that more permanent, decorative concrete border. No more grass growing between those individual stones. Cleaner to edge to maintain. They're willing to travel, not just here in Tuscaloosa, but also in our neighboring states as well over in Mississippi. Many colors and choices. They'll customize for that individual taste and house. Give them a call at 205-331-6823. You can also go to their Facebook account. Find their page. You can see exactly what the videos. They came out, did a free quote. Paul gave me an evaluation. Give them a call, 205-331-68.
For the 5 for $5 wing deal.
Checkers with 2 locations, 15th Street in Tuscaloosa and McFarland Boulevard in Northport, open late.
The Pharmacy at Midtown with TJ Thomas, 205-752-0627. PharmacyMidtown.com. Don't forget about the retail side of the Pharmacy at Midtown. It's an independent-owned pharmacy specializing in walk-in prescriptions, medicine on time packaging.
Fridays at the Free at Innisfree Irish Pub, 1925 University Boulevard, downtown. Come join Wyatt Fulton for lunch at Innisfree Irish Pub.
The Paint Spot, Philip Williams, locally owned and operated since 1971. Quality paint, expert advice. Bigger, medium projects. I recommend renting the airless paint sprayer. Northport, right off McFarland Boulevard, right past Highway 43. 15th Street in Tuscaloosa, close to the Hardin's Bakery. 1971. Philip Williams, locally owned and operated. The Paint Spot, you'll find the quality paint, the expert advice. If you're redoing a deck, maybe you're painting a home or a building, or maybe even a swimming pool or tennis court, it is the Paint Spot. 2 locations to serve you since 1971.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky this afternoon. Tuscaloosa's high around 80. Tonight clear with the low at 58. Tomorrow mostly sunny, the high 81. Thursday partially sunny and warm. The chance of a shower Thursday night. Thursday's high at 82. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3320 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 80 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
DanielMooreArt.com. Daniel Moore Art celebrates those special moments of Alabama football history like 4th and 31, Jalen Milroe connected with Isaiah Bond, or the legacy continues with all the great memories of Alabama Crimson Tide football. You can celebrate Coach Saban with a Nick Saban print, the limited edition canvas. You could also find many of the great mini prints. Celebrate that special Alabama fan in your life. Daniel.
You can shop online at TuscaloosaCDJR.com. At Tuscaloosa Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, you pick it out and we'll work it out. Roll Tide.
Dos Amigos, Highway 69 in the new Publix Shopping Center. 11 a.m. opening, 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday closing at 9, Sunday through Thursday. Some great Mexican cuisine, the great fajitas, the great desserts, the great lunch specials. You'll find it at Dos Amigos in the Publix Shopping Center on Highway 69. Takeout order.
TBC 1230 with Wyatt Fulton and Matt Coulter, presented by BMW of Tuscaloosa, Pearl River Resort and Casino, Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and Walk-Ons.
New Life Art is pleased to announce Daniel A. Moore's newest creation, The Legend, a tribute to Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. Celebrate his legendary 17 seasons and 6 national championships at the capstone with your own limited edition fine art commemorative print or canvas.
Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Dan Byer.
Game 4 of the World Series is tonight in the Bronx, and the Yankees try to keep their season alive with a victory, while the Dodgers look for the first World Series sweep in 12 years. They'll play on Fox. Coverage starts at 7 o'clock Eastern. First pitch, 8:08 Eastern time. The Yankees are making a change to their batting lineup. Jazz Chisholm will bat 4th. Giancarlo Stanton now will hit 5th for the Yankees. Some news from the NFL as the Colts are benching Anthony Richardson. They'll start Joe Flacco at quarterback Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings. Texans wide receiver Stephon Diggs is going to miss the rest of the season. He has a torn ACL in his right knee, and the Texans placed him on injured reserve today. The Ravens acquired wide receiver Deontay Johnson in a trade with the Carolina Panthers. Ravens are also getting a 6th-round pick in exchange for a 5th-rounder that's headed to Carolina. Giants running back Tyrone Tracy is in concussion protocol, while Giants head coach Brian Daboll says quarterback Daniel Jones will start against the Commanders in Week 9.
I got spirit, I got faith. I might bend, but I won't break. I'll fight the elements. And I'ma go down swinging. If I go down, I'ma go down swinging. If I go down, I'ma go down swinging. If I go down.
Hey, we're 6 days away from Alabama Crimson Tide basketball. We're coming back with Nate Oates' favorite song, 6 days away, brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, AlabamaCreditUnion, Checking, savings, mortgage, home equity loan, financing a vehicle. Alabama Credit Union reminding us to remind you we're 6 days away from Alabama Crimson Tide basketball here on the flagship home of Alabama Crimson Tide football. We also air basketball as well. We air baseball, softball's aired in our building, women's basketball's in our building. 8 stations. We cover the Crimson Tide pretty comprehensive here at Town Square Media. And right now we're going to go to senior writer for ESPN. This is a busy time. I bet she gets more requests. And I just wanted to reach out because it is a bye week. We get to stretch our legs a little bit, but kind of understand about this new college football playoff format. We say 12 teams, but how do we get there? Heather Dinich, welcome back to Tuscaloosa. I hope you're having a great afternoon.
I am. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And, man, we cannot wait to dive into this conversation. But what do you think is the number one thing that fans just don't know about this new system?
It's going to be shocking to go from ranking to seeding for those who haven't been living and breathing college football and paying attention to it every week, because it's going to look different. And there are strange things that can happen if you're the 12th team in the committee's ranking, for example, on selection day, and there's a champion ranked outside of the committee's top 12, a conference champion. They will displace that team for that spot because the 5 highest ranked conference champions are guaranteed spots. So, for example, if Notre Dame is ranked number 12 and Boise State is ranked number 15, and they're the highest ranked conference champion, and they're from the Mountain West, Boise State will bump Notre Dame out of that 12th spot for the 12th seed. So I think there are things like that that can happen that college football fans aren't expecting and don't realize when it changes from ranking to seeding.
Okay, and based on your ESPN Plus article that's behind the wall, first 4 out, you've got Notre Dame in that scenario. First 4 out, you've got them as one of the teams that are out, but you also labeled that they could go 10-11-1.
I do, and I think when the committee meets next week for the first time, there's going to be a much deeper discussion on Notre Dame than there has been outside of that room. And that's because there will be people in the committee meeting room who really have a hard time getting over the home loss to Northern Illinois, which now has 4 losses. And yes, Notre Dame played great against Navy. Navy played horrible. I was at the game. Notre Dame finally got their offense going. Navy turned it over 6 times. Does the win against Navy and a win against Georgia Tech and a win against Louisville compensate for the home loss enough to Northern Illinois and the head-to-head win against Texas A&M? Obviously, that's huge. When the ranking comes out, I think, just my educated guess, is Notre Dame somewhere around 11, 12, 13. Any of those spots wouldn't surprise me. Anything higher would.
All right. When you look at the SEC, what do you think is the minimum number of teams in, and where do you think that number will be?
The 4 feels right for the SEC. It's really hard to say right now because I don't think enough people are lending credence to the fact that Texas A&M could go to South Carolina and lose. I mean, I talked to Shane Beamer. He loves what he's seeing from the Texas A&M defense. He said they've got the best defensive line in the SEC, and I think it's going to be a great matchup. They lost to Alabama and LSU by 5 points. So my point in saying that is, do we know the Aggies are in? They are right this second, but are they really? I don't know the answer to that. Can a 2-loss LSU or Alabama get back into the equation? I think so. One of them's got to win out. They obviously play each other, right? And we got to see how many 2-loss teams are left standing at the end of the day. But Georgia, until proven otherwise, is right at the top. You've got Texas. You've got Texas A&M in there. I have Tennessee in there. Who else can work their way back into that conversation?
You think the LSU-Alabama game is a playoff elimination game? Not saying it's a playoff guarantee, but elimination side.
Yeah, the loser of that with 3 losses, I mean, here's the thing. No one knows what this is going to look like. Not me, not the selection committee members, not the chief executive officer, General Rich Clark, because no one has done this before. So how many 3-loss teams are there by the time we get to conference championship weekend? What do their resumes look like? The reality is, my gut says yes, the loser of that game is probably done, because it just doesn't feel like there are going to be a lot of 3-loss teams that have the resume to truly be included in that conversation. Because if you lose all of your games to the best opponents, what else do you have to prove to the selection committee that you're worthy of a playoff spot? At some point, you got to beat the good teams. You can't just have Iowa on your resume, cough, cough, Ohio State. You've got to find a way to beat Indiana. You've got to either beat Penn State or run the table. So I think a lot of teams are sort of in this middle ground mode where they're playing okay, but they've got to beat somebody good.
That's the issue. So if you're looking at it from an Alabama perspective, talking to the predominantly Alabama fans, we do have some scattered fans that listen and chime in from time to time that represent other fan bases. But from an Alabama fan base, who would you be pulling for? Is it Tennessee because the loss, but then Georgia's your resume booster? What do you think would help Alabama in the resume the most? Georgia win the SEC?
Yeah, that's exactly right. As painful as it is for Alabama fans to hear that, I think if Alabama doesn't win the SEC, the best case scenario would be for Georgia to win it, because we have seen before how much it helps a team to be able to say, if they don't win their league, yeah, but I beat the conference champions during the regular season. That's a big deal in the selection committee meeting room. So if Alabama runs the table and they've got to win at LSU, and they've got to win against Georgia, that's pretty darn good, especially if Georgia wins the SEC. And then you're starting to separate yourself as a two-loss team.
Heather, I take a little statistics here, and we all used to say it, Proc Eyeball, which is procedure code for a SAS program. Proc Eyeball overrides a lot of things. I was looking at the College Football Power Index, the eye test, pretty much what you said, but the analytics say that Alabama's a 53.2% chance of making the playoffs. College Football Power Index, regardless of Alabama's 2 loss, they lack Alabama on the analytics side. Any explanation there? Because, they're still pretty high on this College Football Power Index. I think 3rd, if I read the numbers right.
Well, I think it's because the win against Georgia.
Okay.
That carries a lot of weight. And they looked good against Mizzou. Let's be honest here. I was crushing Alabama for 3 weeks heading into the Mizzou game because they hadn't played well, even in the win against South Carolina, right? It was penalties. It was turnovers. It was the sacks on Jalen Milroe, 9 in a span of 3 weeks. And then finally against Mizzou, it was like, oh, okay, this is what happens when you put together a complete game, albeit against a Mizzou team that has not even looked that great in wins. But that aside, Alabama finally played good against Mizzou. Can they keep it together and do it again at LSU? But I can understand why the analytics is high on that Georgia win, because Georgia, I think when the committee meets, they will be the committee's number 2 team.
And you've got Oregon number 1. You can go and read the article. I don't want to discuss everything. I want people to go and take a look at it at ESPN.com. Right now we're visiting with senior college football insider, college football writer, ESPN.com. Heather, has this, because I got to be honest, I was not a playoff expansion person, but now seeing the parity in college football, 12 teams, it may be the best. And maybe I'll get to the 14 or 16, but has this accelerated your conversation of expanding beyond the 12?
Well, the people who are in charge of making that decision, and that's the commissioners, including SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, have made it clear that they want to get this right and have it go off seamlessly without a hitch before they dig back into those conversations. That being said, in the back room, closed door conversations, there's still, I think, a desire to see this expand to 14 teams. But what this has done, and there was a fear from some people that it would take away from the regular season. And I think there's an agreement from everyone, really, that it's enhanced it. And part of the reason for that is because, A, the parity that you mentioned, we truly don't know who's going to win every week. Some of that's the transfer portal and whatnot. But also because the conference championship games matter, which means the regular season matters. The championship games matter because the 4 highest ranked conference champions earn a first round bye. That's huge, right? And then teams seeded 5 through 8 get a first-round home game. So when people ask me this week, you know, what does Ohio State, Penn State mean? And I focus on Ohio State because it would be their second loss. But if Penn State loses, it's only one loss, and people are like, it's one loss, they're okay. But every week they're playing for one of those first-round byes as a conference champion. Every week they're playing for, if they don't get that, a first-round home game, as opposed to having to go somewhere and win 4 straight games to win the national title. All of those things matter every Saturday.
I mean, this is, I cannot imagine. I mean, I get the ESPN PR emails. This has got to throw TV ratings through the roof, the way that this, I mean, because that's what the NFL does. I mean, the NFL does it, right? I mean, that's what they designed to do. They want everybody being competitive. With so many teams engaged, this has got to be huge for the TV partners.
Well, it's so fun for me personally as a college football fan, because I'm talking about Boise State and UNLV and Indiana, you know, and it's just really opened the door to a broader conversation, more fan bases, more teams, more players. And I think that makes it exciting. And one of the things I've noticed, because in addition to doing the committee's projection on Saturday night after the games end, I put it into bracket form. And these matchups look so fun. There has yet to be a week where I line it up into the bracket. I'm like, oh, that's a terrible game. I don't want to see that. It literally has not happened once. And there are rematches where I'm like, sign me up for it. I would love to see that game again. And who knows? And Clemson, Georgia has been one of them.
The only concern I have when we get to Atlanta, January the 20th, of what the teams are going to look like depth-wise, injury-wise. Yeah. That's a little bit of concern. Is it a concern with the leaders of college football?
Yeah, it's 100%, and it should be, because, I mean, I remember years ago in the beginning of the 4-team college football playoffs, sitting with Nick Saban at ESPN during one of the car washes, and him telling me, I don't want this to become a game of attrition. And we talked about that earlier this season when I was with him at a game somewhere, SEC Media Days. And I said, I remember you saying that to me. And that's what this is going to be. It's going to be the teams that have the depth on the offensive and defensive lines and quarterbacks to survive injuries through January 20th. So you are 100% right. And you know who those teams are? The ones like the Ohio States and Georgias and Alabamas of the world who have the NIL, who have the resources to build those kinds of rosters.
Heather, I want to take you back to Indiana. You probably had hard professors. You probably had easy professors. My wife's from Indiana, so I got a little compliment there of what I was telling her. I don't think she enjoys football too much. She doesn't. She watches Alabama, but from a very distant perspective, I was telling her about the undefeated season that Indiana's having, and she's pretty proud. But I want to take it from a professor standpoint. What grade would you give Kalen DeBoer in year number 1 so far? Going, we have a little bit of bye week. We stretch our legs a little bit. A, B, C, D. How would you grade Kalen DeBoer's first year in Tuscaloosa?
Well, to this point, right this skinny minute, I think it's around a C plus. I mean, he's done a good job. He's a great coach. Let me get that clear. He's a great coach. He seems to be a great human being, and I've gotten to know him through covering him at Washington as well. He's won everywhere he's been. And I fully expect him to win at Alabama with more resources, talent than he's ever had before. That being said, those games where you have the penalties and the turnovers and the undisciplined play, it's just kind of like, why aren't they playing up to their potential? It feels like it could be better. But then I check myself on that, and I'm like, didn't Nick Saban literally have the same problems for most of last season with a lot of this? Right? To be fair. So I feel like there's some carryover of the same issues that aren't on DeBoer, quite honestly. And the reason I say C is because right now we're looking at an average team, right? 6-2, 2 losses, the Vanderbilt loss, yuck, right? But also let's give some credit to Vanderbilt, not as bad as it has been in history. So I think it's possible to look at that game and say, shouldn't have lost it, but Vandy's still better. I think there's 2 those two things can be married together.
Heather, thank you again for catching us up. I'll participate tomorrow in the webinar that we're going to have with college football playoffs because we get a little bit of time to stretch our legs and kind of understand. I appreciate you getting us caught up to speed. As you said, bubble watch, that's a new word because there is a lot of bubbles and there's a lot more teams engaged in the scenarios. And I was just looking at that Texas A&M game and like if they don't lose to South Carolina, you're going to have to convince Alabama fans to pull for Auburn here in a couple of weeks.
Right. Good luck doing that. I'll leave that up to you.
Heather, thank you so much. I'll check it out. ESPN.com. Invite the audience and also connect with you on the CFB Heather on the X account. Thank you again. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks so much. You too.
Thank you. Heather Dinich helping us out. Hey, I walked away going, okay, I know a little bit more. I had forgot about what she was talking about with the highest ranked. I mean, she painted a beautiful scenario. Notre Dame's at 12. Boise State's the highest of the 5 conference champs, and they knock Notre Dame out at 12. See, that's stuff that we don't calculate. We don't look at that the way that we should, and she pretty much set it out there. And I think that if you look at her bubble, that's why she's got Notre Dame out. And you just step back for a couple of minutes, and you begin to look at it. Yeah, we're all learning, and the College Football Selection Committee is learning as well. All right, we're free the rest of the way. We're taking your phone calls. We want to hear from you at 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. What grade would you give this Alabama Crimson Tide football team? Robert in Brookwood, we'll go to you. He's our first caller out of the gate. We'll take others. We do have 2 lines available if you want to jump in. We've been a little bit guest heavy here for the last 45 minutes. We're free the rest of the way. We'll take your calls right here on the game. T-Town Tide 100.9.
I'm thinking about the drug. Fowler, man, you sound a whole lot better when I talked to you in the hospital the other night last week.
Yeah, I got my butt kicked for a couple of days, but I'm good.
Yeah. And then when you text me Sunday and said, Babinick, what do I need to take? I need to drink something. What do you recommend?
That's not true. That's not true. Don't.
Yes, it is, Fowler. Don't shy the public. After that Alabama game, the first half when you was texting me, said, what's going on?
Now, hold on. I don't remember texting you.
Yeah, you do. You sent me. I said to him, but Father, what's going on? The first half, we leading 6-0 or something.
Oh, yeah, okay. You text me, and I responded, being a polite guy. Yeah. You said,
polite guy.
No, I'm not even going to read what you said. Okay, I'll keep that private.
Well, read it. Tell the public. Tell my people.
I'm not even going to repeat it. I'm not going to. No, just leave it alone.
I told you to get your shot of mezcal and a beer chaser. You told me you may need a whole bottle.
I might.
Well, you got to quit lying to the peoples. The peoples, my followers, my peoples that love me on your show. They want to know. I don't tell everything.
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
That's right. I can't. A lot of things are said to me in private, so I don't say things. But I have come back. I've been Medicare in season. That's why I ain't been calling.
Are you done? Are you done?
I've been Medicare.
Yeah, right.
No, I got about 4 more weeks.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
I just got off. We got done a little early today, and I come on and said, well, I'm going to call Fowler.
Well, now you live in the state of Georgia. You know you're entitled to a 15-minute break for every 4 hours you work.
Well, when you're working with Carrie and Mo, and we got to drive, we got to cover damn near the whole state of Georgia, and you got to see 400 people. You don't take breaks. I was lucky today to get a corn dog for lunch.
Okay.
Corn dog and a tater log and a jalapeno pepper and a glass of tea.
That sounds like a pretty good lunch right there.
Yeah, it was. We was on the road traveling from Richland, Georgia to Fox Springs, Georgia to Buena Vista, Georgia.
So are you back in Americus now?
Yeah, I'm at home now. I'm pouring me one. Got me some H&H's and
do you have to work tomorrow?
Oh yeah. Yeah, gotta be in Albany, Georgia at 9 o'clock in the morning, then go to Cuppet, Georgia, and Ty, Georgia. Woo!
What you gonna do with all this money you're making?
Well, Carrie Moore pays me good, but it just goes to by Christmas and Thanksgiving and all that. That's the only reason I do it.
So do you convince people to sign up, or like what's the, like if I sat down and said, all right, you're going to help me here, what are you going to help me with?
Oh, Medicare, Ryan, Medicare's, plans change. Your plans change when you get on, Medicare. You have different plans in different counties. One might be going away, and you have to go see your customers and give them a better plan, and they make the choice to choose, You have to look up doctors and prescriptions at their own medicine.
Now,
and stuff.
You're in the state of like Georgia. It's very important for the rest of us. What are you hearing over there? I mean, you're on the boots on the ground. What do you think?
Well, all I'm saying is vote Republican.
Well, I know, but I mean, like you're talking to people, because I'm sure the election over there is talking about. I mean, is Georgia going red?
Oh, you talking about the election? Well, yeah, I know Kerry Moore. He's running for state rep. And district, and I told you he's running for office as a state representative in his district 150 over here where I'm at. He looked at the early voting statistics as a link. You go, he looked at the older white people coming out to vote.
Okay, so that means have you already voted?
Oh yeah, I voted third day that the early voting season opened.
Who'd you vote for?
Well, I went Trump, Vance, Kerry Moore for State House.
Okay.
Representative. I went Republican.
Okay.
That's another thing, fella. I had some write-in votes for me as a water commissioner over there, or some kind of commissioner over there in Columbus, Georgia. And there wasn't nobody running for the position. So I had about 5 write-in votes for Bama Nick.
Did you really? So did you win?
I won't know till next Tuesday.
Okay.
but Bama Cat has got to go. I'm taking her to vote Thursday.
And she's going to write in Bama Nick too?
Oh, she'll write in my name.
Okay.
Bama Nick. And my daughter will go vote. She'll write me in. I may get about 8 or 10 votes. Well, that's more than the next person got, which ain't nobody running against me.
That'll make you the city water manager or whatever, or what?
City water commissioner or something in Columbus, Georgia. I don't know what I never heard of it.
What do you know about purifying water?
It pays about $50,000 a year, whatever it is.
You're gonna be shocked. You're gonna be shocked if you win the darn thing, and you're gonna.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think I'm carried today. Well, if I win it, what do I got to do?
I got you. All right.
I said, what does that job entail? He said, well, Nick, I don't know. I know it pays about $50,000 a year.
There you go.
Well, I'll take it. I'll hire me somebody that lives over that runs it already there, and I'll let them handle it.
Just remember now, we get a chance to you get that 15-minute break, you give us a call. All right, real quick, I got to get through some calls where I got a lot of people waiting.
I don't want to hear about that fella. I ain't talked to you in 2 weeks.
Well, that's your fault, not mine.
That ain't my fault. I've been busy, fella. But I have heard a lot of the callers on your show.
Okay. So what grade would you give this?
I'm not. What are we doing? Report calls on Alabama? I give them a damn C. But I didn't know. I was a high school teacher. That's a grade people on stuff. I just look at the bat percentage. 62 divide that up there, 333%.
Okay, so C. I got you. All right.
C.
Got it.
And all you rest of you callers, y'all better tighten up, because Bama Nick's back in the game, and y'all bored as hell to me.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we take it to the next level. We apologize that.
Whenever I leave and I don't call, I don't know what happens to your show, pal. All these callers get bored, and the new callers don't know what to say, get scared when they talking. I don't know. It just bugs me.
We're gonna do better.
Bugs me, pal.
We're gonna do better. All right.
Do better, pal, because I'll be back in the game and calling.
Yeah, your favorite caller's coming up here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Digger. I'm surprised Digger didn't tell me he liked my calls. I'm the only one this year that picked Texas in the game and something. Of course, they posed me.
I got you.
They didn't cover the spread.
Well, roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Ryan Fowler. I'll talk to you tomorrow. On Thursday.
All right. Sounds good. Bama Nick helping us out. Let's go to Digger down in Louisiana. Digger, good afternoon. You're in the game.
Bama Nick got it right. A jalapeno a day keeps the doctor away.
Will it? Okay.
Quadruple shot of vitamin C. So you eat one after every meal. My father did that. He lived to be 96. So, yeah, it worked.
I'm stopping by the grocery store on my way home then, okay?
Never get sick. You'll never get sick. I want to give a grade. I'm all in on this. Now, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to go with y'all. I'm going to go on what y'all said now. Okay? Okay? Who was it that said that you had the most talented team in the country? Who said that?
I don't know. Was it me?
That was you. Okay. Who was it that said that had the best coaching staff in America besides Dave Bartoo?
That would have been me too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just want to let you know. Now, who was it said back on, and I have it right here, August 1st, that I really think Alabama's going to go all the way? Who said that?
That would have been me too.
Right. Okay. And I'll throw in Marty, Gumbo, Bubba. They all said they were going to go undefeated and win the national championship. What is this grade? What is this grade? Come on. You lost to an unranked Vanderbilt. Okay. And you had it going on with Tennessee. I don't know what happened in the second half. Okay. Okay. You're blowing leads in these games. Okay. So I'm going to go with the D and dog, Pat. What do you think about that, Pat? Pat giving an A. What is he thinking?
Hey, I would have liked to. I would have liked to taken Pat's classes. So.
Oh my goodness. So yeah. And by the way, yeah, I know Steven's right behind me because that's what he did. He hung up. He said, "I'm going in back of Digger." Yeah, Steven, you're a liar. You got to remember, you said this, and it's on tape. You can't be denying it. Said, I don't know what I was talking about. I don't know what he's talking about. What is he talking about, Cowboy? He said it. He said it like twice. He's a liar. Okay? And this is the problem I'm having with you guys, and this is why I'm having to call every day to set y'all straight.
Oh, we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem. Y'all have a nice day.
Roll Tide. Thank you. The Big Buck Contest, Tide109.com, presented by Hicks Taxidermy. You can check out all the details. Go win some great prizes weekly, the grand prize at the end. It is the Big Buck Contest, Tide109.com. We'll come back. Tommy Ellis will take you guys next right here on the game. T-Town, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, we have managed to avoid accidents in the midst of all of your slow traffic for your rush to home. And so we do have McFarland. That is really bogged down on the westbound lanes mainly. You got that all the way from Watermelon to, well, actually to 15th Street. And then Lurleen Wallace.
It's the year-end clearance sale at Townsend Nissan going on now. You can save thousands. See BJ or Kylan today at Townsend Nissan, your savings place.
El Grant is the great Mexican place in Winn-Dixie Shopping Center. Go over and see my friends Carlos, 205-391-4555, 62 McFarland Boulevard, Monday through Thursday, 11 until 9:30. Friday and Saturday, 11 until 10:30. Sunday, also open 11 until 9. You'll find the great daily lunch specials. You'll find great entrees, including the
9 WTBC 1230 with Wyatt Fulton and Matt Coulter, presented by BMW of Tuscaloosa, Pearl River Resort and Casino, Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and walk-ons.
MedCenterUrgentCare.com. We expect the unexpected. Locations in Tuscaloosa, Northport, North River, right there off Rice Mine Road, Fayette, Demopolis, Hoover. The great doctors, urgent care, family medicine, injuries, occupational health, sports physicals. We do expect the unexpected.
Experience the wow factor. Contact Shoot Masonry and Specialties at 205-887-3807 today and unleash your home's full potential.
It's the longest running sports show in Tuscaloosa. You're listening to The Game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9.
into the game here in Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Let's go to Ellis. Ellis, Manchester, Tennessee. Ellis, good afternoon. You're in the game.
How you doing, Ryan, fellas?
I'm good. Ellis, you ever been a professor?
No.
You ever taught a class? Anything?
No.
Well, you are today. What grade would you give this Alabama football team?
A B.
Okay. I'd like to take your class.
Yep, a B. That's what I give them.
Okay.
Whole lot better than that jackass that was talking. Digger.
Yeah, Digger said he wanted a D. But his grade doesn't count. We throw his out because he was the...
Yeah, throw his out.
Yeah.
And throw out the racist pig's grade if he gave a grade.
Yeah, Joseph. He had a B-.
Yeah, Joseph, the racist pig.
Throw him out, Joseph.
Yep, throw him out.
All right. Ellis, I appreciate you, man.
All right, roll tide, Ryan, fella.
Roll tide. Last duck through the hole. Simon, you got a grade for me? Didn't you have a grade? You want me to take Tommy? Okay. Tommy, let it rip, man. I got about a minute right here.
A B.
B.
This team, a B, yeah. New coaching staff, new philosophy. Anything he did was going to be criticized, good or bad. A B. Yeah. Roll tide, Ryan Fowler.
Roll tide. Simon, give me a grade real quick. You got like 15 seconds here. Give me a grade, Simon.
I had an explanation, but I don't have time, so I'll just say B.
B. Jaisha?
Still an A-.
A-. Oh, that's right. You already gave me that. Jaisha. All right. I want to remind you that we call this program The Game, and the only way that you can win the big game, the game of life, is to walk daily with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Good night, T-Town. I'll see you tomorrow at 2. Got a big show lined up for you tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.